All right, Ryan, why don't we just go ahead and get started?
Sure,
People will hop in as we go, but I don't want to, you know, like to start on time.
sure. I
Yeah.
appreciate everyone. Is everyone ready for the joy that is public records?
Woohoo!
Right? No, actually, there's a surprisingly wealth of information out there if you know where to find it that can be super helpful. So I'm just going to touch on a few things that I think would be really valuable. Get some URLs that I think you guys should save. um, that for the future like would really serve you when you're looking at properties with sellers or buyers and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Cool. Can you
Hey,
guys see it?
before you go,
Mhm.
let's introduce who you are.
Ah, sure. Of
Yeah.
course, yeah. So I'm Ryan Blumberg with Universal Title Greater Baltimore. I've spoken to some of you actually. So if you ever have any title issues or you have any ratified contracts that we can help with, we're definitely here for you. And don't think you have to have a contract to reach out to us. We're always here to help regardless. So always keep that in mind. And hopefully, too, on some of these resources that I share with you, if you'd like more information, just send me an email. I'm more than happy to go a little bit more in depth today than later on than we might today. But there's a lot of good information here. Okay. So who knows what SStat is? Anyone? Yeah, so most people don't. It's, taxation and assessments that's run by the state, right? Why is that valuable to us? So pretty much every property in the state of Maryland is going to be featured on here. So I'm going to click in. There you go, Department of Assessments and Taxation. Um, and there's a lot of information you can learn about a property just from this website. Um, this is the home screen, so it kind of looks weird. You're like, there's no real intro to it at all. So you're just basically looking up like it's called a real property data search and telling it you get out what you put in. So we're going to start really simply and just giving an address. So we're going to go Baltimore County. You have these different ways you can actually, identify a property, street address, property account identifiers, map and parcels. We probably won't get into that today. Street address is probably good for us, but I'll point out some of that stuff as we go through. So it's as simple as like literally taking street address. Kirsten provided one for me. We're going to use 6 East Aylesbury. So hopefully I'm spelling this correctly. First thing, it doesn't like directions. So though our property is 6th East Aylesbury, we're leaving the east out. So let's see here.
I'm going to add every once in a while in Baltimore City, you have to have the east or the west, and you won't even, usually it's not the whole word. Usually it's just an E
It's
or
always
W.
abbreviated. Yep,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep. But that's the rare occasion.
Right. So, all we did, 6 East Ellsbury Road. Here we go. So the first thing we can learn here, just by typing that in, we know who the owner is. So automatically, there it is. It's showing to us. Estero Lopez. Okay. There's the mailing address, and some vital information there in the upper right-hand corner. You can see use. This property zone for residential, so just a regular residential property. Important for us, principal residence. Um, that tells us a few things that they actually live at the property. And typically, when you have the principal residence, the mailing address is going to be the same, right? Because their mailing address is going to be the residence. Um, why would that be valuable for you guys? Well, if you're trying to, meet a seller or a buyer and trying to learn a little bit more about a property, like this is a fast way to do it. Just to know who owns a house. You can just boop and you can find out if they live there or not. And again, this is all public record. So I'm not pulling back some veil that no one has access to. This is all out there for anyone to search. Um, what we have in that upper corner too, which we're going to use a little bit later, you see deed reference. I'll show you how to use that once we get through here. That one's good if you need to pull a deed for a property, right? So that'll pull you the most recent deed for the property you're looking at, though that's a little bit more in depth. So just basic like layout here. So we have the district and the account identifier. So that's kind of the parcel ID that we're going to use on the title side. I don't know if that'd be a ton of value to you guys. You're usually going to use the street address, but it is there if you needed it. Look, we have when it was built, the actual square footage, even like what the basement looks like, the actual property area. So like not just the home, but the actual um, plot of land that's associated with it. Um, all that kind of stuff just off this one page, right? So it's all just kind of staring us here. One that probably doesn't affect you guys so much, but maybe. I can typically tell if like a property is going to be like a renovation home because the tax assessment. So usually if the sale price and the tax assessment, which you see in this area, is way off, somebody's been in there fixing things. Um, for this one, looks pretty standard. Looks like it's probably been around for a while, so they're not swinging a bunch of hammers, especially for a home built in 1954. And it looks pretty accurate for a house like a, 3,500 square house in the area that it's at. So the tax assessment looks pretty good. So last part you can see here, the last time it was actually sold, right below that, you can see who bought it, and how it was done. I wouldn't worry about the type so much. It just gives it kind of the deed right here, deed number that we're going to use in just a second. Any questions? So basically, this should be a resource. Like literally, if you just want a one page about a property, this is at your disposal at any time, right? You can just literally pull this and you can see all this information kind of spelled out to you. So you have a general idea. Even if you use this information, you can kind of figure out what the taxes are from this, um, which can be helpful for buyers to know like what they're kind of getting into. I have some other resources on that as well, though. Uh,
And that information is also in Bright MLS. So as agents, that's probably the place you would go to find it because you already are using Bright anyway. I can go to Bright and look at the taxes.
yeah, and then which makes sense because for us, this is more of an advanced course. Like we're doing calculations off of these.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think agents need to do that. Like go to Bright.
yeah, I don't think so either. Um, but yeah, but again, still a good resource though. So this is like basically where we all start. Every time we open a file that you guys supply to us, this is the first thing we're going to pull off public record because it gives us basically a snapshot of the property. And there's a lot of, like I said, information we can discern from it. City folks, one thing I kind of scrolled past when we started, um, and some county, ground rent. Do you guys all know what ground rent is? Um, so the idea, you can kind of see if it's actually registered with the state right here. Like literally it'll go from no ground rent registration on file, which is there's some properties in Baltimore County that have it, but it's mostly something you find in the city. It'll say ground rent registration on file, and you can literally click it and go through all the information that's on record for it. So always a good thing to know because you want to warn your buyer, especially if there's ground rent on a property, that they'll be responsible for it.
I'll add in, it's a good thing to check even though they're supposed to put that in Bright MLS, I have on occasion run into a house where Bright was incorrect. There was a ground rent and the agent didn't have that form on there. So I actually do look at this before I write an offer on a house. I actually go and look at the deed personally, but a lot of times, a quick check would be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think like that's the first place that we go, and then we obviously do title searches and stuff. So if it's not revealed here,
Yep.
but it's a very fast way to see things.
Mhm.
And again, like it's funny, your eyes kind of glaze over some of this stuff. You see this in the upper left-hand corner. Always good to know about tax recaptures. Um, always good to know, especially for when you're transferring a property. Because we want to make sure if there is a recapture that a buyer may be responsible for, that they're aware.
Can you
Um,
explain what that is? I don't.
so there's a lot of different recaptures, right? It can be any number of things. Recently, I've seen as we garner more of them, there's like solar credits that some sellers may get, that buyers will not. It may not transfer. there's all kinds of assessments like that, especially in the city. Do you guys ever talk about like CHAP credits, Kirsten?
I don't think people tell us about. Yeah, I've done transactions with that, but I don't. A lot of the people in this room are not necessarily Baltimore area, but there are some Baltimore area people who may run
Sure.
into a CHAP credit. Yep.
It's a thing that you can sometimes get a tax credit for where if you're renovating like historic property, right? Stuff that's been around for a really long time. Um, that's always valuable to look into. Again, it's a potential thing. How smart do you look when you have a buyer
Mhm.
and you know of something like a CHAP credit and like ahead of time, like, ooh, like if we just know this is like we could file for this. Um, or have the potential for it, it's going to make you look great. Because that's some forward thinking that most people aren't going to see.
For
Same
sure.
thing. The same thing goes down here. Like, if you keep going, so again, homestead application information and homestead tax credit application stuff. I don't know if you guys have ever gone over that. We always recommend homestead tax credits. Um, Typically don't have to worry about those transferring or any kind of recapture on those, but it's a incentive that is afforded to most residential homeowners when they purchase a property to cap your taxes and how high they can raise them. Looks like again you would see it like literally here if they had applied for it. And same thing goes for this homestead tax credit. That's a different thing, and it has to do with incomes, but um, both of them are shown right on this homepage. Questions? So I would definitely, the first page I would like basically make sure you have a link to is this one. Literally, we have it just like bookmarked. We go to it every single day over and over again. Again, partly because of the nature of what we do, but partly there's just a lot of good information here. So I'm gonna cheat now and use the information from this one to get onto another one. So land records. Um, Anytime I get to ask to pull a deed in the state of Maryland, this is usually where I'm gonna find it.
And I think people in this room may not realize why you want to get a deed as a real estate agent, but I'll say this, like for me as an agent, before I go on a listing appointment, I'm pulling the deed. And I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. One is I want to be sure that I have the correct people signing. Because on the property tax record, if there's more than two people, it's not going to show. Like, let's say there's four people who need to sign. I'm not going to see that anywhere else unless I go and look at the deed. Then I'll see all four names listed. I do it to verify whether or not there's a ground rent. Um, I'm kind of looking to see if they gave me all the information I need. And I actually print that deed out and I bring it with me on the listing appointment because for whatever reason, sellers are very impressed by you already having the deed. They don't realize that it's just very easy for any of us to access. So if I just have that in my listing packet, it's like, oh, you have my deed? Well, it just makes you look good to just bring that with you. So there's a good reason to look it up before you go on any listing appointment.
Yeah, and any opportunity you have to look like the smartest person in the room, take full advantage of it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Also, too, like when you pull the deed, and we'll get into it and on this one in just a second, um, I don't expect everyone to be like experts because deeds are usually written in legalese.
Yep.
Um, but there's a lot of information in there if like you just know what to look for. And we'll use this one as an example. So this website, the one thing with land records, again, free,
Yep.
totally free. This one you do need an account for, but it's very easy to do. You just set up, give them an email, and they'll let you in. So nothing you have to really be worried about. So the property that we used before, and when I go back, right, we had the deed reference. So I'm just going to take that information. I'm going to put it right here. And you may have seen different terms for book and page. They've gotten better about that. They're not as esoteric as some of the other ones you may see on record.
Totally.
So all I did was pull the deed reference, right? So this should be the vesting deed for the property, so the current one. Up, As it happens. Love that. Wouldn't be the first time. Looks like I am in the right county, correct? Yeah. Yeah, we're good.
Yep, Baltimore County. Yep.
Yeah. Well, sometimes things aren't indexed correctly. Let's try a different way. So this is half the fun of this, right? Um, again, this is you use the information that you're given. So we're going to change it to our actual homeowner instead.
One advantage too to the way you're doing it now, like right now, instead of doing it by the deed reference, he's looking it up by the owner's name. I actually usually choose to do the owner's name rather than the deed reference because then I'm able to see liens and things like that. So I'm, I guess, nosy. But I kind of really look things up before I go on my listing appointment, so I have a really much better idea of what I'm getting into.
Yeah, I think that's the smart play. And so let's see if you guys, and I'm trying to catch myself. I'm going too fast because I'm used to looking at this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we took the name from here, right? And then I kind of know the last time it was transferred, right? 1992. So that's
Yep.
what I'm looking for. Um, and so if you look, looks like I have it right here.
1992. There's the
Yep.
deed.
Because what you're seeing above that, there looks like there might have been, yeah, deed of trust that's been released since then. It looks like they might have even did something else. Um, looks like they probably deeded out to someone else, like the purchaser. So let's see what the original looks like. Yep. So there's another person on it, right? We saw there's one homeowner here.
Hmm.
Well, there's another individual.
Yep.
So
And he died. That's what happened.
yeah, we're assuming, yeah. That's what I'm.
I mean, since it's my listing, I know.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. So basically, but we have that. We have the two homeowners there. We have the county, which is great. They're the grantees. It looks like. Oh, okay. So there you go. So it looks like they deeded into themselves, is what we're seeing here. Um,
Yeah, I
so
believe
Juanito F.
family.
Lopez and Estrella F. Lopez, they are the grantors. Um, so they're granting the property to the party of the second part, which is Estrella. So she's literally deeding it into herself,
Yeah.
which is pretty common. But yeah, so we pull this deed and there's all this stuff here. I'm not going to go into it super detail. Always important for us. You guys are used to street addresses a lot of times. In title, most of we look at is legal description. That's what the property is, and that's what we insure when we insure title. It's not a street address. It's the whole parcel in a very dictated form. So that's always good to know. But you'll see that kind of the legalese written out right there. But all this information is right there, so we figure out who owns the property, who's selling it to who, or in this case, granting into themselves. Usually they'll have like the sum. So the last time it was sold, this one, they're doing this for $5 whole. And then you'll see that same page number I mentioned from this one. So you have 9031 184, and then you see 9031 184. So simple enough. I don't want to get into too much on this, like reasons for pulling deeds. There's all kinds of them. But for today, like that's where you can find this stuff. Again, two really good bookmarks just to have those two things right next to each other. I think is super, super valuable.
Mhm.
There's one other thing I wanted to show you today. So let's get past that. There is an excellent website right here that most people have no idea about. This is just this great amalgamation of like all these different public records put onto one website. And this is for the whole country. And you can basically surf this thing and it'll let you break it down into all kinds of stuff. So let's start here. We'll just use Maryland. Let's use Baltimore County again. Okay. So right here, right off the bat, um, you basically have the tax collecting, you have all that kind of stuff, you have the maps and all that. You can go to the data. Um, I always find for me, let's say like taxes, for example. And again, you might have access to this through Bread MLS. But for us, like this is how we search this stuff. right through. Of course, I agree. I'm not a robot. There we go. Okay, we're gonna use street address 6. Let's see if it lets me do the full. We'll see. It probably won't. Doo-doo-doo. No, okay, let's kill the east real quick. Okay, so obviously we got a lot of results on this. I'm hoping it's going to be this one. Fingers crossed. Yep, it is. So here's all their tax bills for the last, oh, I don't know, 9 years or so. Why is this valuable? Now, for what we do, obviously we're pulling this kind of information all the time to transfer the property. What would be important, say you have a buyer, and again, you may have access to other places, but having a general idea of what the tax bill is going to be, I think would be great for your clients. Like, because they know what they're going to be on the hook for generally if you have like and this gives you more of a finite number like you can share with them. Um, and it's all right there for you. So right here, you actually see what the county and state tax is for this property. Remember the assessment for it was like 370. So this is pretty much where it should be.
Yeah, and
Um,
again, you'll see that number on Bright. This is going to give you a little bit more detail. And you can also see if it was paid, which I actually look that up when I work with a seller sometimes. If I have concerns about that, like especially if they have a mortgage, their mortgage company's paying it. But if they don't have a mortgage and like I know I'm in a situation where there's some financial distress, I'm going to look this up and see if they paid their taxes.
right, especially too, because the one thing with the seller, if you haven't paid your taxes,
Hmm.
um, as the title company, we're going to hold you responsible for them at settlement, right? Which is not a big deal. And we do it all the time. But basically, nothing can be owed on the property for us to transfer it. You can call them taxes, you can call it the water bill, but nothing can be owed on record. So the idea is that we have to satisfy that bill to transfer the property. And that's why we're always pulling this information and have to kind of know what it is. So, but yeah, that just gives you a breakdown. It's like I think most of us are probably used to this as just as homeowners ourselves. Like if you need to know your tax bill, this is how you're going to pay it. So you literally can go through that kind of stuff. So, but it's good information to have, and it's not just, it's public. It's all there for you. Let me see if there's one other one on here. Doo-doo-doo. Let's see if they can do that. Yeah, that takes us back there. So again, it'll be different for each county, but you can like find a lot of information in here depending on what you're looking for. Also, let's not overthink this sometimes. Um, Again, things for a seller, what is owed against the property? Sometimes we're gonna overthink things. So we need to know, like, to be prepared for its settlement. Let's just be smart. Baltimore County water bill. All I did was Google it. It'll come right up. So you can go and you can look and find it. Um, Again, leave the east out of it. There we go. There we go. So they owe 27 bucks. But why is that important? Well, say like the water bill hadn't paid, you have a city property and hasn't been paid in I've seen properties up to 5, 6 years. Well, you might have a pretty sizable bill there, right? So you want to temper expectations with your seller, be like, hey, we will have to pay this at settlements. But knowing that information up front, it's all there for you if you're just willing to look. So that's like a basic, simple, just crash course on some of this stuff and what you can find out there. And again, if you have any questions on any of these, just feel free to reach out to me. But I think these three links are like where I would start, right? Just have those in your back pocket. You may not use them all the time, but have them linked somewhere because they're relatively easy to use, right? There's not like a learning curve here. And there's good information. And again, if you look like the smartest person in the room when you show up to that open house or whatever it is, having the deed there and knowing everything, looks great to clients.
Yeah, really, you look really good if you've researched a property and it's not that hard to do. I put the links for all three of these websites in the chat, and then I will also post them when I post the recording as well, so you can try them out.
Cool.
And
Any questions? Good.
I have one question. I came in
Yeah, for
late, but
sure.
I don't know if it was already asked. When you were looking at the deed, if
Mhm.
if there's two people and one person passed and it wasn't like you had another line that said it was forwarded to that one person that was still alive,
Mhm.
if they didn't do that and the deceased and the person living is still on it, do you just show a death certificate?
Interesting question. So that's getting into some title stuff. Okay. So that's where vesting A becomes very important and the language of deeds and like what's actually in there.
Okay.
Because usually we want it to be very explicit, right? But for example, right, in Maryland, let's just use a common example. So you have a married couple. So that probably in Maryland, it assumes that you are tenants by the entirety. What does that mean? Most people don't know. What is tenants by the entirety? It just basically means that you both own the property equally. And I try to explain it like you actually own the property 100%, the two people, even though that's kind of confusing. The idea is that, God forbid something happens to the other individual, the property automatically vests into the remainder. Okay. Um, so all you would do is basically, usually at settlement or before settlement, as we're processing the file, you would show a death certificate, and then you're usually clear to sell the property, right? Because you inherited the property as soon as on that person's passing that it basically automatically vested into the other person. So that's where that 100% comes in. Where if you were, say, what we call tenants in common, right? Tenants in common, say you had two individuals, you both own the property 50%. If someone passes in that situation, actually that person's portion would go to probate court, usually, if they don't have anything set up, estates or trusts or anything like that. Um, that's why typically, like with a married couple, it's much cleaner to do a tenants by the entirety, or what we call, you may not be married, but you can do the same thing, what we call joint tenants, right? Uh, so that's vesting. Maybe we'll get into vesting on a different one. Because there's plenty there, and like I know the language of deeds is very can be intimidating. Um, I'm hoping maybe that's the next one I'll do. Maybe we'll do that so I can try to demystify some of that.
Mhm.
Because what you guys are trying to figure out sometimes, like a lot of times with sellers, are they actually clear to sell a property,
Yeah.
right? Like, do they have the actual even right to do it on record?
Yep.
And that language becomes monumentally important.
And I
So,
think if you were in that situation and you weren't sure, your best move is to reach out to Ryan,
yes,
right?
reach out to
Just
the title
say,
team. Yep.
here's the address, here's what I know. What do you think? Right?
Yep.
Instead of trying to figure it out yourself and possibly be wrong about it, why not go right to Ryan and find out for sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Could Ryan put his contact on the
It's
chat
already in
board,
the,
please?
I put it in the chat.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Kristen.
cool.
I'm not seeing it.
You know what? I'll also, if you text me, I can text it to you, and or I'm just going to text it to you right now, so you don't
Okay.
have to text me. But it will also be when I post the recording, I'll also have it there.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Kristen.
Sure. Oh, well, we might
Good.
finish
You
today
think we're
on
good?
time. That would be a record, wouldn't it? All right. Well,
I have a
thank,
quick question for
oh,
Ryan.
let's
If
hear
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
this is just real quick from what you were saying, if I had a situation like that and I wasn't sure, if I called you and you just wanted to verify like who owns the property, would that take like a long time or how much time would you need?
No, usually just depending on what jurisdiction it's in. Like Maryland's very easy. I think I helped you with one that was a little more difficult because PA can
It was
be
in
they're
PA, yeah.
sticklers. And so you're doing that like literally the records are held by the county. So that becomes a little bit more of a challenge, but Maryland is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So we can always look that up pretty lickety split. Um, all sorts of different ways too. Like I said, to go back to that SDAT, I can do it through an address, I can do it through a parcel ID. Um, if you're clever on the deeds and stuff like that, you can do it through names and all that. And again, it's all public record. So it's not like there's some secret veil or anything like that. It's like this is what shows, right? I always tell people at the settlement table, like, especially buyers,
Yeah.
you're buying a house. It's probably the biggest purchase of your life. Um, where's the receipt? Like, and the idea is that it's public record. That's what it is. You go and look, and there it's reflected on record that you are indeed the grantee of that property. And that's what it is. And that there's a ton of value in it. So
Okay. Would it be more difficult if, say, a house was by a corporation instead of individual people?
no.
Oh, okay. I was just curious.
No. So typically, okay, we would search a corporation the same way. You'll see if we actually go back, let me see if I'm still logged in, probably logged me out. Okay, we're good. So same way we did Miss Lopez, you actually see here, see how it says corporation name?
Oh,
Yeah. So you would
didn't
just
see
type
that.
in the corporation name, and then what I typically do for that, this is a trick.
Hmm.
We're gonna go fuzzy. So the one thing you have to realize about land records is they do their best, but the state and sometimes whatever jurisdiction, they don't always index the way we'd like them to. So like, give you an example. So say we're trying to like sell a property and help a seller out, and like I paid my mortgage, it's paid off, it's been released. And then we look and it's there, we see the deed of trust is staring us in the face like, well, it looks like to us that it's right there on record. It's still there. It's not released. And then they might have indexed it somewhere completely different. And then you find it and then they go, okay, they're right. That happens not all that often, but it can, right? Because we're all human. And how this is all put into this giant system. I mean, you got to think there's, you know, hundreds of like how many years like some of these ground rents on Baltimore properties, if you read the legal descriptions, they are out of sight because they were written in a time before us. And so some of these records go back, into the 1800s. It's fascinating, really, but so like that's how much like the information is in this database. So it's a ton of stuff. Any other questions?
All right. Well,
Cool.
all
Thank
right. Well,
you.
thank you so much, Ryan. Thanks for attending, everybody, and have a great weekend. See you next week.
I appreciate you guys. See ya.
Bye, Ryan. Thanks.